Today, I'd like to talk to you about homelessness. This topic came about mostly because of the morning that I've had. This was not a planned topic for um, next week's podcast, which, if you're seeing this, it's this week's podcast. I record these 1 to 2 weeks in advance. But this morning, I stopped at Whataburger for my coffee before I headed on out to the grocery store. Not doing much thinking or planning ahead. The cold front came in yesterday, and it's going to be cold and icky for a couple days. And I haven't ever been to the grocery store for big shopping in several weeks. So I was off to the store this morning and didn't even have any gas in my car. So I'm doing a lot of things this morning while it's like 37, 38 degrees. But I stopped to get some coffee, and I think I had one of Whataburger's breakfast tacos, which are not very good. Usually if I want a breakfast taco, I go just down the road to Cocina de Colima, which used to have their breakfast tacos for $1.25 if you got there early enough, which I'm never there that early. But anyway, so that's what I was doing, and it was kind of empty in there, which is kind of unusual. Quite often at that location there on Chimney Rock, just south of Westheimer, there tend to be a lot of homeless people wandering around in that area from the intersection at Westheimer, wandering down towards Richmond and then Southwest Freeway. So there tends to be homeless people around in there, and quite often I'm sitting in Whataburger, and especially when it's cold or rainy, there'll be a couple of homeless people off in the corner. Sometimes they're eating or drinking something, and sometimes they're just kind of hanging out. And I do know they try not to keep people just hanging out and living in Whataburger, but that's kind of what it's like sometimes. I have noticed that in the last few months that the manager or someone will come out and say, "I'm sorry, but this is for our customers. And if you're just sitting here, you're not really a customer, so it's okay for you to just mosey on down the road," or however they say that. So I've witnessed that kind of thing before. I don't know if before I got there had been a bunch of homeless people in there. It was dirtier than normal, and granted, this particular Whataburger, I don't go to late at night on a weekend because it's very crowded, and it's loud, and it's just not clean in there, and I'm not really a place where I want to be. But anyway, usually in the morning it's really clean. Two ladies that have worked there for more than a decade, Linda and Mary, I haven't seen them anymore. I don't think they're working there anymore. And since they've left, it's not as clean as it normally is in the morning. In the morning, it's usually clean, but it hasn't been real clean lately. But today it was extra bad. There were like whole things spilled on tables and not cleaned up. The corners or in front of the windows where I like to sit, didn't look clean. So I just sat out in the middle. I was kind of like the only one there. It wasn't really crowded, but I don't know what time I was there, probably 10. So I wasn't there really for the good breakfast time. And a man comes in and kind of looks around. I hate to make quick judgments about anybody, but he kind of looked around and just went and sat at a table. He had a cup, could be a cup that you'd get coffee in from the corner store. It was not a Whataburger cup. And so he came in and he sat down just sat at a table, and he had like an earbud in, and then he had two cell phones laying on the table, and he was just talking like he was having a conversation with someone with the earbud, but I don't really think there was anybody there. I think he was just talking. But anyway, and so I will say I made a quick assumption and judgment, and in my mind was, oh, it's just a homeless man just wandering in, which is not unusual in that location. So I'm just sitting there, and a lady that works there came out from behind the counter and kind of leaned over the little counter that separates where you order from where the seating is, and looked at the man and said, "It's okay for you to leave now." And then he took the earbud out like he had been talking to someone, which I don't really think he was. He said, "Excuse me." He said, our seating is for customers, and you've been here a while and you haven't ordered anything, so you're not a customer at the moment, so it's time for you to leave. And he looked at her and said, "You didn't ask me any questions. You just told me to leave." And she went ahead and said, "Well, our restaurant is for customers. The seating area here is for customers, and you're not a customer." And he said, "Well, how do you know I'm not a customer?" And, well, this is why I know it was 10 o'clock. He said, "I came here for lunch. You don't start serving lunch till 10:30. And the lady said, "It's after 10 and we're serving everything right now." And then he continued to argue with her. You know, if he really was there for lunch, my thought is, okay, stand up, go to the counter, and order your lunch. But no, then he started to yell and complain and say, "I am a customer. I came here for lunch. You didn't even ask me. You just thought I was in here to cause trouble." And then he started saying, "Just because I'm a black man, blah, blah, blah." And then I'm just observing. I said, well, the lady that asked him to leave that works there is also an African-American lady. So he's yelling at the black lady for trying to get rid of him just because he looks like a black man, and she thinks he's there for trouble. So I didn't really understand that either. It seemed clear to me that she assumed this was a homeless man. And, you know, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I mean, I assumed it was a homeless man when he came in and sat down, but maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. He says, I'm on my lunch hour and I'm waiting for 10:30 so I can order lunch. I'm at work, same as you. I'm doing my job, and this is where I am." And, okay, well, if you're really on your lunch break and she says you're going to order your lunch, why didn't you go to, I don't know. And so he told her, says, "You go ahead, call the police. I'll wait for them. Go ahead and waste taxpayer dollars." And by now I wasn't uncomfortable. You know, I've seen people get upset before. It wasn't, to me, it wasn't an unsafe. I mean, there was some yelling going on, but, you know, I didn't think anyone was going to escalate and make anything. So I just continued drinking my coffee and finishing my my taco. And then a lady came in who I also would have assumed was homeless. She was wearing pants, no socks, some sort of house slippers, a midriff t-shirt that didn't cover her belly, no bra. It was cold, so I don't have to really describe that any further. But, you know, here it's like, what, 37, 38 degrees? And even some of the ladies at the counter says, "Aren't you cold?" And then actually I'm thinking like, so I just kept trying to pay attention and say, if she truly is homeless, I was like, I'm wearing my great big old heavy wool coat that I very seldom wear. And I thought, for a moment, I thought, I'll just take my coat off and give it to her. For one thing, she's cold. For another thing, we can see her ha-has through her t-shirt. It's like, we might want her to cover up a little bit. But I thought about that, but I didn't follow through with that because I was thinking, well, maybe that's not the right thing to do. And then I thought, well, I tried to watch what she was ordering, and I didn't. She did get something in a little bag and went. So I don't know if she, bought some French fries. I have no idea what she got, but she did come in, went to the counter, ordered something, and then left. And I assumed she was homeless as well and cold. And then I thought, oh well, I always carry a sweatshirt hoodie in the back of my car because sometimes even in the summer you go into a restaurant and it's cold. I can go back out to the car and get my sweatshirt. But I thought there's always a sweatshirt, although I don't remember seeing that when I went grocery shopping. But usually there's a sweatshirt in the back of my car, and I thought, well, I'll just go give her that. And but I didn't get up because I don't actually remember when she left. And I'm assuming she bought something and left because she was at the counter talking to the ladies, and then it wasn't very long and she was gone. Because I got distracted by the man who's starting to be a little loud. And then it calmed down, and then the I don't know if it was the manager, the lady who had asked him to leave, went in the back. And I assumed she was calling someone. I couldn't see her from where I was sitting, but I was looking this way in the middle, and the man was sitting there looking this way. So he's yelling back there, yeah, you go ahead and call something. I'll wait. I'm not going anywhere. I want to talk to the police too. You call them on out here. And then I'm beginning to think, maybe he's not homeless. Maybe he really is a man who came in just for his lunch. Maybe this lady did assume he was homeless. I assumed he was homeless as well. And so I could understand him being upset. It wasn't real clear to me exactly what his mindset and thinking was. If he truly was a man who was on his lunch hour and was told he couldn't sit there, and truly if he was waiting till 10:30, although I never did see him order anything, I could see if everything he said was true. I could see where he'd be very upset that someone asked him to leave. But he seemed to take the thing that he was being asked to leave because the lady that asked him to leave was saying he was a dangerous black man and she wanted him out here, that he was trouble. And so I didn't get that at all. I mean, I've seen them get rid of homeless in there before, and what she did was exactly what they do with the homeless. So I don't know. I really don't know. But then the workers all stayed in the back of the kitchen. I don't know if they were afraid of what he was going to do, or if they had called the police and the police were on their way. And part of me wanted to wait and see how all this played out. But I had finished my taquito and my coffee was almost gone, so I was going to go politely ask for another half cup. And then I'm just sitting there eating, and then the man, and we're on opposite ends of Whataburger. It's not a big Whataburger. We're on opposite ends, and he says, "Sir, I'm sorry to disturb your eating," and but I said, "Oh no, not a problem." I said, "I've been around quite a bit. Nothing really shocks me anymore. I'm okay." And he said, "Well, you heard her, right? Blah 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 blah." And I thought, well, how much do I want to engage in this? And so I said to him, I said, yes, I did hear. And it's obvious to me that some assumptions were made. And then he began to take offense at what I said and said, well, she did. I said, I didn't say anybody was wrong. I didn't say anybody was right. I'm just saying that I think some assumptions were made, and I have no idea whether the assumptions are true or not true. I'm just saying that some assumptions were made. And you're right. Nobody asked you any questions, but some things were assumed. And I didn't really want to go into, since he's acting like he doesn't think that this lady thought he was homeless. It's like, well, if he really isn't homeless, do I want to tell him? Said, yeah, we all kind of thought you were homeless. So I thought, no, that's okay. So I went ahead and I took my trash to the trash can and went back to my table and got my cup of coffee and went up to the cash register to get ready to get my refill, half a cup. And so on my way, I said, well, I'm sorry that your morning got off to a rough start, and I hope the rest of your day goes better. To which he responded, I've been at work since 2 a.m. This isn't my morning. And I thought, okay, there's another clue that there's something not right with this fellow. And then I began thinking, you know what? I bet this man has been chased out of here before, maybe. So I'm not really sure. But that is all assumptive on my part as well. I'm still making assumptions, and I don't really know. I wasn't anxious, upset, or anything, but it did cause my brain to start going about homeless. And it's like, maybe this man is homeless and maybe he's not. Maybe the lady that came in with like July summer clothes in 37 degrees, maybe she was homeless, maybe she's not. But I then began to think about homeless people. I live in Houston, Texas, where I have lived for 34 years. And the Houston metro area, not just the population of the city limits of Houston, but the Houston metro area has 7.5 million people. To put that in perspective, the entire state of Oklahoma doesn't have 7.5 million people. In fact, if you look at all 50 of the U.S. states, 35 of the 50 states don't have as many people as the Houston metro area. In fact, if the Houston metro area was a state by itself, it'd be the 15th largest state. So there are 14 states that have more total population than the Houston metro area. So it is an area where people come to. And there's lots of people here. There are services for homeless people. There are some resources here to help. So, and it's also a place that isn't normally cold. So when it comes to homeless and homeless people, are we really supposed to do something about it? And if so, what are we supposed to do? I know I am particularly troubled by homeless kids under 18, 19 years old, when their families kick them out for whatever reason, maybe because they're gay or maybe because they're trans. I particularly have a problem overlooking that. I just can't. I've been part of a nonprofit here in Houston that works to educate families about LGBTQ in order to limit rejection, including homelessness, of these kids. Been on the board of one of those organizations for a long time. I've actually been the president of that organization since I retired, which was 2017, beginning of 2017. I became the president of that nonprofit. Are there limits on what we're expected to do? Where do we draw the line between helping people and, dare we say that some people are living out the consequences of their life choices? And if they are, does that release us of doing what we can to help? At some point, you can't help those who won't receive the help, but where are our limitations? It's like we have a calling. It's very, very clear. Many organized religious organizations or churches don't really follow the calling that Jesus laid out. If you look at the life and lesson and ministry of Jesus, it's pretty clear, and probably few of us, maybe none of us, actually live our lives and do what Jesus calls us to do. Is there anyone who lives up to the calling that we were given from Jesus himself? Jesus had to come to earth and live amongst us as a human being because what people were saying about God wasn't true. So Jesus had to come and say, no, this is the way it is. But if Jesus really told us what to do with the homeless and the immigrants and our neighbors, oh wait, he did. But do we say, no, no God, no Jesus, we're not doing that? I struggle with knowing my part to help with the homeless. I've spent at least the last 15 years trying to make a difference as far as educating on the front end, hopefully to reduce homelessness, specifically with LGBTQ youth. I mean, the idea of parents understand that people don't choose their sexual orientation no more than you say, well, what color of eyes do I want to have now that I'm an adult? You know, it just doesn't work that way. And if we could ever get people to truly know and understand that, then nobody kicks their kids out of the house for being gay if you truly knew and truly know and understand that. People that get involved in drugs and really mess themselves up mentally and physically, for a portion of that population, get to the place where they cannot exist in the world as they would have been able to do before that. And a portion of them find themselves homeless. Are we excused from helping those who have caused their own problems? I don't really think so. Sometimes I hear people say things that are not very kind, certainly not things you would think a Christian would say about the homeless. Am I better than them if I only think some of those thoughts and never say them out loud? No. Um, I don't know what the limits are on what it is we are expected to do if we truly are going to love our neighbors. I don't think we give to others so much that we put ourselves into financial jeopardy. But I also know, as specifically American human beings, we don't have a good comprehension of what enough means. Many of us have more than enough. Many of us have more than we need. And yet, we still find ourselves looking for greener pastures, wanting more. I've struggled with in 2025 thinking, well, maybe this is the year for me to make some changes as well. I could live in smaller communities. I don't have to live in a city with 7.5 million people. But having more somewhere else because my resources would go much further living somewhere else, is having more better than just having enough? Or do we learn how to make our enough enough? We have so much more than many other people. Sometimes I don't know exactly what it is I'm supposed to do. Like I was having my taquito and coffee this morning, and this man who may not have even been homeless, and the young lady who came in who may not have been homeless either, but I'm thinking, like, I wonder if I should just give her my coat. But I was wondering about that. And the man who's sitting there, that they're asking him to leave because he hasn't bought anything, and it's not just like a hangout spot. Should I have bought him a coffee and a French fries or something? I had those thoughts while I was there, but I didn't feel like I was supposed to do that. But there are times when I feel I am supposed to do something. Several years ago, probably about 2015 or 2016, I was driving on Richmond. My grandson, my oldest grandson, was with me in the car. He's 16 now, so that would have been 8 or 9 years ago. So he would have been 8 or 9 years old. Wow, time marches on. And he was riding with me. And at the time, there was a homeless man who was around in the area here around my house, the main intersections here. You know, I'm about a mile to 610 and like 5 blocks to Southwest Freeway. So there's a lot of traffic in this area at all the main intersections. So there's money to be had if you want to stand there with the sign and ask for money at the intersections. So there tend to be homeless people around where I live. And this particular man I'd seen probably a couple of years here at the intersections. Sometimes he's sleeping on the sidewalk there at Cocina de Colima, where I get breakfast sometimes. I was seeing him a lot in this area. And this particular day, I was pulling up to Richmond to Fountain View, and I was going to turn left there, and I was in the turning lane, and I see the man, and he's walking there in the median, and he's barefoot. He didn't have any shoes, which I guess you could get your shoes stolen while you're sleeping on the sidewalk around here. And he had no shoes, and so he was walking, and he really wasn't actively trying to get money from people, but he was there, and everybody knew that's what he was there for. But he stepped on something, and so he fell down, and he was pulling something. I don't know if he stuck on a piece of glass or a piece of metal, but he had something in his foot, and he pulled it out. And here I am. I'm right here at the intersection at the stop sign, and he's there. And I look over and see about how long his feet are. And I had just bought a pair of tennis shoes not long before that, Pumas. I really liked them, black and white Pumas. And I'm just sitting there, and I didn't even really think about it. At the time, I had a 6-speed BMW, so I just shifted into neutral and reached down and pulled off my shoes, rolled down my window, and handed them out to him. He said, "Oh, thank you," and he literally sat down in the median and put them on because he literally had no shoes. And so then we were going to my house. And so we get to my house. I live in a townhome community, and it has 2 courtyards where the houses are, and then it has a parking lot right on the front corner. So we go in and we park in our carports, but you go down sidewalks before you get to your house. And so I pull into my parking spot, and I look up late and says, "Well, Grandpappy really didn't think about that, but that man needs some shoes." So I gave him my shoes, but now we have to walk to my house, and I don't have any shoes. So we have to go in the house and find some more shoes. And I remember him just looking at me, and I know he was just thinking. I mean, he was, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. And so he was just thinking, didn't make any comment. But, that was a time when I didn't really even think. It was just like, here's a man who has no shoes. He just stepped on something. I know he truly is a homeless man because I've seen him for about 2 years around here. And it's like, he doesn't have any shoes. It's like, well, I've got shoes. I have, in the other room in my house, when I bought this townhouse, it didn't have really good closets, and they were all horrible. So I took out 5 little dinky, stupid closets and had no closets. And then I took what was the biggest bedroom there, which is now the smallest bedroom, and I came out 6 feet off of one end of the room and built a wall, and you have a huge walk-in closet there, and one whole side has shelves all the way up. And at the time, I hate to say it, at the time I had over 100 pair of shoes, and it's like, I've only got 2 feet. I have since scaled way down. I had a housekeeper a few years back that wore the same size shoe, and so I was cleaning out, and I said, okay, so I took a bunch of shoes out. I said, well, I'm taking all of those shoes to Goodwill. If you want any of them, you can have them. And he took several pairs of those as well. But yeah, it's like, here's a man on the corner that I've seen living on the streets here for 2 years. He clearly doesn't have any shoes today. He stepped on something and it's stuck in his foot. And it's like, it wasn't where I thought, oh, I wonder if I should give him my shoes. No, it was like, shift the car into the neutral, pull off your shoes, hand them out the window, and say, here. And then you go home, and it's like, okay, I never did replace those shoes. I remember when I bought them, it says, oh, I really like the way those look. And so I bought them. They were okay. They cost a little more than what you should spend on a pair of shoes, but I just handed those out the window to him and went on home. And then Blake and I were going to go, my grandson and I were going to go somewhere. So I said, okay, let's go get some shoes. Go up in, and there's a whole side of the closet that's all shelves that at the time that was shoes top to bottom. Now I've made the whole bottom section where I hang all the pants, but it's still got shoes in there, and it's like, oh, I don't know how many pairs in there right there. I got rid of a whole bunch, but there's still probably 40 or 50 pair in there. And I promise you there's shoes in there that I've not worn in probably 4 or 5 years. This weekend I wore a pair of shoes that's very, very comfortable. And they look like they're covered in sparkles, but they really are not. It's like little metal rivets. And the little metal rivets catch the light and reflect because they're pieces of metal. And so they look like they're covered in sequins, but they're not. They're just little rivets. And so I wore those a couple times out this weekend because they're very comfortable. I'm having some trouble with my big toe joint where it meets the ball of my foot. I'm gonna have to go to the doctor about that, I guess. But and it's like, okay, I've got these shoes that they're very comfortable. And then when I was at Jones Hall, and especially all the old ladies walk by, oh, I love your shoes. It's like, okay, that's all right. Kids, dogs, and old ladies seem to really like me. But anyway, and then I started thinking, how old are these shoes? I remember buying them, and I don't know when I bought them, but I wasn't retired. I retired in 2016, so I've had those shoes a while. It's like, when you have that many pair of shoes, it's very hard to wear a pair out. But anyway, that story is about, sometimes you know what you're supposed to do and you just do it, you know. I didn't sit there and think, I wonder if I should give that man my shoes. I'm just driving and I look down, he falls. He doesn't have any shoes. He stepped on some, it's stuck in his foot, and it's just like shifted to neutral, off came my shoes, hand them out the window. And then I went home, went up into my closet, got another pair of tennis shoes to put on. Probably at that time I had 20 or 30 pair of tennis shoes. I don't have a lot of tennis shoes now. Maybe 1, 2, 3, probably 3 pair that would technically be tennis shoes. 3, well, 4, 5, well, never mind. But there's really only 2 pair that I really wear, and they are getting wore out. I'm gonna have to replace them. But it's like, can you imagine not having any shoes? And I didn't think about it, but can you imagine, at the time I had over 100 pair of shoes in my closet. Here's a man without shoes, and I have extra. I didn't say, oh, I wonder if I should give him my shoes. It was just an instant reaction. He needs shoes, I got a pair. Here you go. It was different this morning while I'm sitting in Whataburger. There's a man sitting there. They've asked him to leave because he's not a customer. And I thought, well, I could buy him something to eat. But I really didn't feel like that's what I was supposed to do in that moment. And then I really did think about giving the lady that came in with a skimpy little shirt and house shoes and jeans on. And I thought, oh, I wonder if I should just give her my coat. You know, I was wearing that big long wool coat that I don't remember when I bought it. I think I bought it when I was going to Boston in February, and I had nothing nearly warm enough. And so, but I didn't feel comfortable doing that either. I mean, especially if she wasn't a homeless person and she just jumped in her car and ran up here to get something to eat at the store and didn't really think about it being called. You know, you could have insulted someone by saying, oh, here, dear, let me give you a coat. I don't feel bad that I didn't do anything for those 2 people today, but I did think about it. I sometimes think that as we live our life, it's the times where we don't think about what we're doing and we just do it. Like when I gave the man my shoes, it's like, I didn't think about it. It's like I'm driving, oh, that man needs some shoes. Oh, here's a pair. If you like this type of content, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching.